Welcome. Thank you for coming on this evening when there are lots of other activities in Ann Arbor. So we know that you are committed to this topic and interested, so hopefully we'll be able to give you a good sense of what we can be doing for sustainability as it relates to housing. Earlier this year, the city officially adopted 16 goals to create a framework for sustainability that's now incorporated into our master plan. What this means for Ann Arbor is that there will be a more conscious integration of sustainability into future master plans. So, for instance, right now we are working on our South State Street Corridor Plan, which is a land use and transportation plan. We're also updating our non-motorized plan. And so, as a part of those planning efforts, we are taking these 16 goals and working to integrate them into the recommendations. Also, this means that sustainability will be considered as the city sets priorities for future expenditures in infrastructure, in our programs, and our planning. So we're hopeful that these types of discussions here and the discussions that we're having at the city about sustainability will move us forward in our policies. This year's series is looking to bring sustainability concepts into our everyday life. So we are really trying to make an attempt to bring it down beyond that abstraction to what we do on a daily basis. So far in this year's forum series, we've explored adapting to our changing climate and how to support a robust local economy. So those were the two earlier ones. Tonight we're going to focus on diverse housing. The goal, the sustainability goal that we will be speaking to today is to provide high quality, safe, efficient, and affordable housing choices for now and into the future. So that's a pretty big topic. Housing is a very big topic. In addition to housing, you can also talk about elements that are needed to support housing in a community, which would be things like transportation, access to commercial services. But what we're going to explore this evening is that part about how to meet the current and future needs of the community, and specifically we're going to talk about an aging community. Although it's not restricted to an aging community, that's going to be the central focus of the discussion this evening. The aging of the baby boomers is a very well-publicized issue nationally, but you may not be aware of some of the changes that are already happening and we're already seeing in Ann Arbor. Here are some numbers from the 2010 census about Ann Arbor, things that have happened in the last decade. Family households, so these are households that are related individuals. It could be a mother and father, it could be two adults with children. That type of household has decreased by 8%, while non-traditional households have increased by almost that same amount, by 7.5%. So as a community, we have more groupings or households of people who may not be related to each other. Households with one or more individuals aged 65 plus has increased by 22%. So we definitely have a situation where we have more older people represented in our households. The city added over 2,600 dwelling units in that 10-year time frame. Right now we're just under 50,000 housing units in the city. At the same time, Ann Arbor's population decreased by a couple hundred people. So that is an interesting dilemma. What that means is that the trend nationally of decreasing household size is happening here too. So as we're adding housing units, we're having fewer people that live in them, and our population is stable, which is great. Many urban areas actually lost population. But what we're seeing is that we're having smaller households within Ann Arbor. So what we're also learning is that the fit between the housing supply that we have in this older community and the housing demand that's going to be challenged by demographics as we age is that the boomers and the millennials are looking for, very broadly, smaller units, fewer people in these units. They're looking for non-motorized and transit access to goods and services, to their commercial options, to their job opportunities and volunteer opportunities. And they're generally, again, this is a very broad statement, but they're generally looking for a more urban and less suburban type of environment. So Ann Arbor, we make the best of lists, and one of those best of lists is, best place to retire. We're pretty fortunate to have a good variety of housing types compared to perhaps some other cities. But we still have a large number of older, single-family detached houses as a part of this housing stock. So right now, we have 41% of our housing units in Ann Arbor are what we call single-family detached. So these are your traditional homes sitting on a lot by itself, or usually in a subdivision. So that is a pretty large portion of our housing, although we learned recently that it could be as high as 71% for the state of Michigan or 61% nationally. 15% of our housing stock is what we call single-family attached, and so those are duplex units. It could be on top of each other or side by side, or townhouse units. Some people call these condos, but these are housing that would be attached in a row house or a townhouse type of development side by side. That leaves 44% of the housing stock in Ann Arbor as multiple family. That's largely a traditional apartment type of building, but it does include some group housing, fraternities, sororities, although that's a fairly small portion of that. So as the population of Ann Arbor bulges at both ends, so that means on the age spectrum, we have almost a guaranteed age cohort of the 20s, late teens and 20s, as a part of the University of Michigan undergraduate population and somewhat the graduate population. But we also have the other bulge of the baby boomers, and they're in this community now or gravitating to this community, either having been here to go to school or the community appeals to them, being drawn to Ann Arbor. How do we approach this housing? Is there a mismatch here? So consistent with the sustainable buildings goal in our sustainability framework, one of the approaches that we should consider is taking the housing stock that we have and adapting it rather than building new housing. There is a big trend to go to green housing. The greenest housing, people would argue, is an existing house in this case. So how do we make the housing stock that we have adapt to this changing demographic? One of the things that we can do is adapt existing homes to incorporate universal design accessibility features, and we'll learn more about that this evening. But that allows for more houses to be used by more people of different ages and abilities. We can keep our existing housing affordable by sharing the space in smaller household homes. So as that household size declines, it really frees up bedrooms, it frees up space within these housing units out there. Can we share that space with other people? And can we support a variety of housing types for different lifestyles? This evening we're going to hear about accessory dwelling units, which is a type of housing unit that is out there but really not very well known. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to start out with an overview of the changing demographics and the need for age-friendly housing from Karen Konfataris from AARP. And then we'll hear from three different responses from people who are involved in this adapting of existing homes within Ann Arbor. Ryan Cowmeadow, who is here from the Housing Bureau for Seniors. Steve Bredernitz, who has his own firm, Bredernitz Professional Services, who does a lot of construction work in this area. And Eunice Burns, who is a former council member, and many of you know Eunice, I'm sure, who is a resident of one of these alternative living situations. So all three of them are going to speak to that. So as we go through the presentations this evening, some people will have some slides, some people will not. If you would just hold your questions until the very end, we'll all move up to the table up here and take your questions since it's being taped. Back by Ken, there's a microphone. We'd ask you to step to the microphone to ask your questions. And I will introduce each of the speakers as they come up.